Welcome back. Today our serious student talk continues with the ZIEH-FIX. I have told how to get the old ones as well, so we can compare them to one another. You can find the questions in a description and you can jump to the questions you would like to know or you're interested in. And I would say, let's go and see if he's ready.
So, talking about the Electro Pick guns.
Yes, we have a few questions for you. And the first question is, how and when did the idea start, and would you tell us something about the development?
Sure. The version 3, we had the idea about changing the battery system from nickel cadmium to lithium ion for I think 5 years before we actually started to develop the version 3. And when we said, okay, we want to change the battery system, we also said we want to change the way we charge the device, we want to change the way we make sure the battery keeps alive as long as possible and everything. So we completely revisited the design from the version 2 and completely changed it for the version 3, only keeping some smaller parts intact of the version 2. So for the version 3, we actually checked to do exchanging of exchangeable batteries instead of a fixed battery inside. The problem we had with doing exchangeable battery is, even though it would be the cheaper way of manufacturing an Electro Pick gun, the problem was that we would have more resistances inside the circuit, which would reduce the power by nearly 15 to 20%. So we said, okay, even though it's more complicated to ship the product, it's more complicated to produce the product, we have to include charging electronic, decharging electronics, so it makes sure that we can't completely discharge the battery, and therefore it's getting more expensive. We want to do it in order to keep the complete power we can possibly have of the device inside the device, instead of losing power due to the resistances of the changing mechanism. This is also why we reached out to a colleague and we developed our charging PCB with a micro USB port, charging indicator so we can see how much charge we have on the tool, and an indicator if we are charging, so we know directly, okay, our charger is broken or there's a problem with the charger. So we started with the back and then slowly worked our way to the front. In fact, I think we should have some prototypes over there. Let's grab them. So we started with the first prototype of the complete shell. So actually the first one was this one, if I'm not mistaken. So we took some parts we had left from the electronic pick gun, a pick gun we produced for quite a short time. We had to stop because the motor, which the complete electronic was based on, was discontinued, and therefore we stopped the electronic pick gun, but we still had some battery compartments left, so we took them and changed them in order to be used in the new Electro Pick gun, just for prototyping purposes. Made a working prototype just to check how much power we will lose with an exchangeable battery system and so on, just like I told before. We also completely redesigned the head. So before, the head was just stick on to the handle and screwed in, and we didn't like the way that you could always see the screws. So we changed the internal parts to completely be internal, not having any outside screws except for 2. And we made it so that the motor is part of the head unit now, so it's screwed into the head directly, and the prototype was very tight about this tolerances. So let me see if I can find the position again. No, I'm just too stupid to put in the screw. So this is basically the first prototype we had, so no actual middle part, and just checking the electronics, checking if we would be what battery we want to use, and the charging electronic we were developing. The next prototypes are actually these two. So we had one without internal components, just to check on the feel of the device. Even with this already, we made two of these, one with internal, one without. We realized that we deviated too much from the version 2. So if you can see the head of the version 3, or the prototype of the version 3, and the head of the version 2, you can see that we actually changed the head quite a lot. And I didn't really like that. It looked a little bit thick on the end here, and it was too far off. So when we check now with the latest version and also the last prototype I have here, you can see that we made the small adjustment here to make it look a little bit closer to the version 3, actually, to show that it's still in the same production area, still the same producer. The next step then was that we completely assembled it, checked it, did some prototype runs. So we made a complete prototype with the electronics inside, and when we did this, we wanted to make it as short as possible. So while doing this, we realized if we do it as short as possible and people hold it like this in their hand, so they push the button with the thumb, it would stick out or inside the hand quite a little bit, which was a little bit uncomfortable. So this is why we made it longer. So with an Electro Pick gun, people that use them a lot will tell you it's not always better to have the smallest device. It's better to have a good one with a good weight, so it has less vibration, it has more point of an anchor to really hit the pins, and to be more ergonomic in the hand. And this is why we then changed the length of the actual pick gun to be a little bit longer than needed, and therefore came to the last prototype here, which is, as you can see, a little bit banged up. It was just an aluminium prototype. We just used a spray can to make it black, to make it look similar to the latest version, and to give to a few friends in order to test it. And the response was very positive, so we actually didn't need to change anything anymore. And the final version then, instead of just a spray coat finished, we had a real coating on it, so the outer area of the aluminium actually gets hardened and then blackened, so that the coating will stay on for a very long time, and it's very hard to scratch off, or nearly impossible to scratch actually. With that, the new electronic was finished, the design was finished, and we just produced a small series one. So normally I think it was about 25 devices. This prototype series you do normally at the end of a production or at the end of the prototyping stage is to find out the last kinks during production, to measure how much time you need for each eventual part, so that you can calculate the cost of a device, and of course to have 25 pieces to then again send to a few partners, to a few resellers, and to a few good friends to actually test the device again, to make sure it actually survives a real life environment, and that the coating is good and everything. And after we have waited nearly half a year for everyone to test and to give their feedback, we then started the production. In total, we needed about 2.5 years from starting the prototyping, starting the development, to the finished product and to going on to sale.
Okay, very interesting. So is the tool produced here, and could you show us some of the machines in the working area?
Sure. So first of all, we have the Gildemeister CTX, which you can only open when it's on, of course, forgot about that. So this is a turning and milling machine, which actually produced all the outer parts, and also the first time the internal part was also produced there. So you have seen the small plastic part of the first prototype. We just continue to develop also the small plastic part and produced it here in the beginning. Then we have the water jet. From Widder. currently we are cutting again new lockpicks, but of course the blades are cut on there, and the hardened steel, I don't remember the English name, the German name is Schwinghebel, so basically the oscillating arm, I think is the correct translation, is also cut on here and then produced further on another machine. So at the end, the oscillating arm actually gets into our milling machine, so in here, and we make the end of the arm round in order to fit a small bearing on it and make sure that the arm also lasts as long as possible. When all parts are finished, some go into coating, some will directly go to the production area. A small part I forgot is of course the small button on top is also completely produced, so this is not a finished part, this is directly produced here. And at the end it comes over here for assembling, and as you can see we have quite a few of the parts already here, so let's just transfer it. We have the I don't remember the name. We have basically the part where the PCB is in, the back part, then we should have here all the heads. We have some internal parts in here to hold the oscillating arm in place. We have here, yeah, I talked about that in the beginning. This is the internal part to hold the battery, to make sure the battery doesn't shake around. It also holds the button, so the actual switch, not the button itself. And in the beginning we produced them ourselves, and now we actually have made or got a mold made and get it directly injection molded, so it's a little bit cheaper for us to get. Then again, small parts like these to put on the motor, to make sure that the motor is fixed. And the most expensive part about this product is, next to the electronics, is actually the threads. Because we didn't want to have a normal threading, we wanted to have a special 3-part threading to make sure to only have as little twists into the wires as possible. So at the end it then gets assembled just like these 3 heads. As told before, the head itself you can normally heaten up and unscrew. If a device is for an end user, we glue it in. If the device is, for example, for ourselves, we don't glue it in. We didn't want to glue it in the beginning, but the problem we had was that the vibration of the device, because the device is so powerful, it would start to unscrew itself. And so we wanted to make sure to glue it a little bit, but still be able to open with a small heat gun or something. This one I will later show in the seminar room. Another one I can deassemble a little bit more to explain you about the threading. I mean, we can show it, or we can directly show it here actually. The back is also with a special threading. You can see now it's aligned like this. Aligning all the parts also quite delicate. So if I unscrew it, and let's say I will screw it in the wrong position, just like this, you can see that it's not aligned anymore. So we have 3 different starts and stops in the thread, which makes it possible for us to go this complete distance with only 1.5 turn, while still having a complete possible, or while still having a good thread that will hold for a long time. So now it's not far enough. So let's go to the correct position to put it on. I think I don't like threads today. Okay. So just like this. When it's finished with assembling, it actually gets to the station here, where we have quite a lot of chargers, and make sure to charge the device, to test the device fully, and to be ready to be shipped. So a problem we had was actually with the motor. Sometimes the motor would stop working, and of course if this would happen we would just exchange the motor for free and fix it. But in order to check the motor a little bit more before, we made a small testing rig where we can simply plug the motor in and then can actually check it directly here. You can see this is an old nickel cadmium battery which was into the version 2, and now we have the new version of the batteries with lithium ion. So with that I think we can go back, except you have some more questions for the production?
No more question for production.
Okay.
Okay, now I have more questions for you. Could you tell me when is it the best time to use the Electro Pick?
So normally the most clients we have will use the Electro Pick gun as the second step. So first they will check if the cylinder or the lock is actually closed, so the door is actually locked. So they would use normal tools for retracting the latch to check if that is the case. If the tool is locked, then they would use an Electro Pick gun or hand manipulation. This depends on the region. Some regions don't even do that, they directly go on with the destruction. Some regions then go with the manipulation. If you do manipulation, this is the right step to do it, but you should put a limit. So if you say, okay, my limit is like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, after this time, stop and then go on with destruction, or tell the client, okay, because of the lock, you would have to charge a little bit more or whatever, because at the end, your time is your money, and therefore you should make a limit and say, okay, at one point, it's not good to actually do manipulation anymore and go on with destroying. When you use the device, a few small things about it. First of all, I know a few clients that like to tamper with the small screw here. So they will use the screw to adjust the tension of the spring. Please don't do this. This screw is the only screw we wasn't able to hide. So actually if you push it back in further, this means that the oscillating arm will actually hit the screw, and this will make a small tear into the oscillating arm and can result in the oscillating arm of breaking. So the actually adjusting screw you have here, so you can unscrew the lower part, screw it in, screw it out, and rescrew it. We were checking to do a quick change mechanism, but we found out that more clients would tamper with that and don't know how to actually adjust it. And secondly, also because of the vibration, it would start to loosen a little bit. So with that being said, I think the best is to just go over and show it on some few locks. So you always have a few different tension tools to choose from. This is actually a personal preference what tension tool you use. For some locks I prefer to use the small ones, for some locks I prefer to use the ring tension tool. With the ring tension tool I also have to say some clients like to shorten the lower part of the tension tools, just like this. This is also personal preference, what you prefer. So first we will start with a no-name lock, 5 standard cylinder pins, nothing special, no security pins. So with a small tension tool I prefer to tension at the pin area down here, which is the top of the keyway if you have the American standard way where the pins are on the top. So tensioning just a little bit, make sure not to put it too far in, to not block the first pin. Put in your tool, hit the coupling inside, go a little bit back, and then you can activate the tool and deactivate it. It's very important not come to just push it down, but to activate, deactivate in different timings. In this case I already opened, even if I didn't want to open. So let's do it a second time. And there we have opened this very cheap no-name lock. If we go on, this is no demonstration about the particular brand, it's just about different ones. But to say this is a Basi lock, it's quite a good brand and common brand for a lock of Locksmith. We can also go give tension in the bottom. we have open. Here we already have anti-picking pins inside, but in this case it's quite quick.
Better. Slow.
Okay. With that we would be finished. If you have any questions, just put them down in the comments down below. If you want to check our last video, you can put it here. If you want to subscribe us, we would be very happy about this. The button will be directly on my face, just hit it.